Joining us now for World Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News international correspondent who has been traveling from Paris to London. Now she's in Lagos. Her name is Adefemi Akinsanya.
That's me.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Morning, everybody. Good morning, young lady. How are you going? They didn't give me. Can you believe they didn't dash me? I don't understand what's going on.
Go back and collect our
Maybe they're waiting to announce the new Pope before they release.
Okay, fine.
Release the formal one. I think they're looking to the future. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody?
Great.
Good to see you.
Great.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Let me tell you what's happening around the world. We begin with news out of Sweden. At least 3 people have been killed in a shooting in the city of Uppsala. Now, the shooting did take place at a hair salon close to Vaksala Square in the center of the city. The shooter, who fled on a scooter, is still reportedly on the run. As of Tuesday evening, a motive for the attack remains unknown. Now, this shooting happened on the eve of Valpurgis, which is a spring festival held on the 30th of April, and it brings large crowds into the city, especially onto the streets of Uppsala, which is a city located north of the capital, Stockholm. Very, very popular for its university. Now, there's been increasing concern over the number of shootings and gang attacks in recent years in Sweden, and the government has said it wants to tighten the country's gun laws. You remember back in February, Sweden saw the country's deadliest ever mass shooting when 10 people were killed in the city of Örebro after a 35-year-old man opened fire at an adult education center. We took that story on the World Brief back then. Now, US President Donald Trump has celebrated the 100th day of his second term in office with a campaign-style speech in Michigan, touting his achievements and criticizing his political rivals. Let's take a listen to what Donald Trump had to say.
In this beautiful state with thousands of proud, hard-working American patriots. And we're here tonight in the heartland of our nation to celebrate the most successful first 100 days of any administration in the history of our country, and that's according to many, many people. This is the best, they say, 100-day start of any president in history, and everyone is saying it. We've just gotten started. You haven't even seen anything yet. It's all just kicking in. After decades of politicians who destroyed Detroit to build up Beijing, you finally have a champion for workers in the White House. And instead of putting China first, I'm putting Michigan first, and I'm putting America first. After a lifetime of unelected bureaucrats stealing your paychecks, attacking your values, and trampling your freedoms, we are stopping their gravy train, ending their power trip, and telling thousands of corrupt, incompetent, and unnecessary deep state bureaucrats, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. You're fired. Get out of here.
Well, in addition to that, Trump has also delivered a dramatic fall in the number of migrants crossing illegally into the United States. But the economy is a potential political vulnerability as he continues to wage this global trade war. Meanwhile, Amnesty International says the first 100 days of Donald Trump's presidency have supercharged a global rollback of human rights, pushing the world towards an authoritarian era defined by impunity and unchecked corporate power. In its annual report on the state of human rights in 150 countries, the organization said the immediate ramifications of Trump's second term had been undermining decades of progress and the emboldening of authoritarian leaders. And then finally, diplomats from 8 southern and East African countries have signed a letter calling on the UK government to support a private members bill that aims to speed up debt restructurings after economic crises meant countries were unable to pay back loans. Now, the average developing country is spending some 9.5% of government revenues repaying debt. That is double the level of a decade ago. The poorest countries are spending $15,000 according to the UN Development Programme. From 2012 to 2022, public spending on debt grew faster on health and education. faster than health and education. Now, the letter said that 90% of debt owed to private creditors by the world's poorest countries is actually governed by English law and is transacted through the City of London. Now, signatories included high commissioners to the UK from Zambia, Mozambique, and South Africa. Now, Ethiopia's negotiations, for example, to cut the value of its single bond have reportedly been delayed by a bondholder group. And in Zambia, Malawi, and Ghana, the Africa Export-Import Bank, otherwise known as Afreximbank, as well as the Trade and Development Bank, have not agreed to loan write-downs. Both are regional trade banks set up by African governments that lend at high interest rates, but have demanded to be excluded from these types of restructurings like the IMF and the World Bank. It's quite a controversial situation there. Those are your stories. Love to hear your thoughts.
Right, let's begin with African nations
Yes.
and debt restructuring. I think it's unfortunate that when these conversations are happening, this great lobbying, by the way, from the ambassadors of Mozambique, South Africa, and Zambia. Zambia, of course, we know is one of those countries, along with Ghana and Malawi, that were able to will strike restructuring deals, not yet fully implemented. But what struck out for me is the fact that as the Global South, in these critical conversations, were unable to stand united as a bloc. These lone countries shouldn't have been there alone. And it echoed what happened in Brazil yesterday when the foreign ministers of the BRICS nations met in order to try and come up with a consensus response to Donald Trump's tariffs. Absolutely. And they're unable to even come out with a joint statement that reflected the BRICS position. So it just shows you that there's so much disunity, and truly we were divided so that we could be conquered. So I do hope that, I don't know where the hope lies, actually. If an organization like BRICS is unable to come together and speak with a single voice on an issue as critical as tariffs, how we are going to come together as African countries to talk about this. 9%, minimum of 9% of budgets being spent on repaying loans is hugely unfortunate. And we need to also get out of this trap of constantly blaming the IMF and the World Bank, because internally there's a lot of fiscal indiscipline that's also happening. Mismanagement is the order of the day. Very quickly to the United States. Donald Trump, 100 days. Now, the tradition of celebrating 100 days actually began with Franklin D. Roosevelt in the 1930s. And that was because he was president during the Great Depression, and he had to do extensive reforms to try and get America and, well, the world, in essence, out of the Depression. Now, in his first 100 days, Franklin Roosevelt is said to have signed off a record 92 executive orders. Donald Trump has surpassed that. He signed 142 executive orders. But what's more critical for me is the fact that people are asking how sustainable these executive orders will be. Can they even make it to the end of his tenure, let alone be passed down to next administrations? Because they pale in contrast to the fact that only 6 new bills have been passed in Congress. And of course, we know that the bills in Congress have more staying power. So Donald Trump, comparing himself to Franklin Roosevelt, I don't expect anything less. However, the test of time, because Franklin Roosevelt's legacy lasted over 100 years. So we'll wait and see.
Okay, let's start with Africa. They say charity begins at home. Now, this issue about the debt burden of African countries, it's not just charities and MPs in the United Kingdom who are fighting and saying that the United Kingdom should back it. Now we have Labour MP Sarah Champion, who is championing the cause. We have Gordon Brown, former Prime Minister, who is championing the cause. In Africa, we have those African leaders, and also bishops of the Anglican Church, who are saying that, look, over 32 African countries out of 54 are heavily indebted and are having to pay debt heavily, and because of that, they cannot provide resources for education, health, and all of that to benefit the people. Look, the principle about debt is that when you borrow money, you pay. That's the original principle. Don't go and borrow money and then you say you don't want to pay. You are asking for debt forgiveness. You are asking for debt rescheduling. You are asking for debt cancellation. And those who hold that view, the reason they do so is that they say that, look, all these 32 indebted African countries, what do they do with the money? Africans in the affected countries are saying, our problem is leadership. These African leaders, they will go and borrow money, and then they will be living ostentatiously. They will waste the money. They will steal the money. They will open bank accounts in safe havens in Island of Jersey, in other places that we know. In Switzerland, Swiss accounts. And then later on, they will come around and say, oh, our country is so indebted, please come and forgive us. Come and reschedule. Come and cancel. Even during COVID, Emmanuel Macron, Prime Minister of France, was one of those people who led the process and said, look, African countries, all these southern, global south countries, for them to be able to cope, let us reschedule. COVID ended, these African leaders, they are again stealing and misbehaving. I think that when the issue of debt comes up, we're not condemning taking loans. You can take loans, you can borrow, but what do you do with it? What is the commitment of African leaders to their own people? African bishops have also joined. They say, please forgive the debt, help Africa, and other. No, it's not a religious thing. It's about how leadership in Africa organizes itself. Now, much said about that. Quickly, about Donald Trump. Donald Trump was in Detroit, Michigan, yesterday, which is the major automotive, sport in the United States, manufacturing sport.
Yes.
And, earlier in the day, he had signed an executive order to say that, the United States will take another look at all the tariffs on automotives. Now, he was talking in Detroit as if he was running a campaign. He used the opportunity to praise himself. He says that in 100 days, he has done what he calls the revolution of common sense. Opinion is divided on that. He says that he has enhanced American greatness. Opinion is divided on that. And he also used the opportunity to abuse people, including President Biden, including the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell. And he says that the Gallup poll that says that he is the most unpopular president within 100 days after the World War II. He says, no, it's fake news. Because the Gallup poll is saying that in terms of popularity, since the end of the World War II, he is the only one who has like 41%. And that people are not happy with him. But he says it's fake news, that he's doing very well. Okay, how is he doing well? You have talked about immigration. Yes. Yeah, immigration, he says between January and now, or within 100 days, they have expelled up to about 7,000 plus immigrants, and that the immigration rate has reduced to 7,000 plus. 2, he said he has successfully ended birthright citizenship in the United States. But most of those executive orders, he is the one who has signed more executive orders than any other president since 1945. Most of those executive orders are being challenged in court. And so, economy. In terms of economic performance, the American people are worried about inflation. They are worried about unemployment. They are worried about America going into recession. They are worried about what will happen to them tomorrow. Investors are leaving America and going to emerging markets. And he says, in terms of economic performance, he's doing well. Then the big issue, there's something they call shock and war. AWE. What President Trump has done is to shock the world, particularly with his issue about trade and tariffs, which, has upended everything. Stock market is upended. Investment in the United States is upended. The global international trade system is upended. There is trade war between U.S. and Canada, between U.S. and China, they are saying they are doing negotiations with over 70 countries, the latest being India that he talked about yesterday. However, I summarize by saying the big issue to worry about, what is the future for the United States and the people of the United States under the watch of Donald Trump. But Donald Trump says, yeah, you haven't seen anything yet. Yeah, there are better days ahead. Things are going to get better. And well, most of us don't think so. Okay.
Agreed. Thank you both for your wonderful submissions to the World Brief. Let's move on to newspaper headlines across Nigeria and the world. Dr. Wate, I don't like it. I don't like it. Okay, let's start with this day. Alrighty, this day, this morning, leads with former Delta State Governor and former opposition vice presidential candidate Ifeanyi Okowa saying that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu must complete a second term in office in order for Nigeria to be stable. This day also reports that 27 days after Mele Kyari's exit, the NNPCL has sacked a number of executives, including the Chief Upstream Investment Officer, Bala Munti. The Punch is still calling it Hurricane Tinubu. That's as the PDP's NWC and governors are planning to meet next week to avert any other looming defections. That's as the party plans to sue Oborowori, the 547 local government chairmen, assemblymen and councillors. That is all in the background of Okowa and Atiku clashing. Let's take a look at the front page of the Daily Trust this morning, and it has Senate Minority Leader Abba Moro saying that choosing Okowa as the vice presidential candidate by the PDP cost Atiku the presidency. Now, we're talking telecoms now on the front page of The Guardian, as Nine Mobile is at a crossroads as it seeks a $3 billion lifeline as 10.3 million subscribers either ported from the network or they threw their SIM cards away altogether, completely dumping Nine Mobile. Now, this comes as the company continues to sink into multiple crises, including a petition to stop its spectrum sharing agreement with MTN and an ownership conflict. To the New Telegraph this morning, and it leads with news that kidnappers are using cryptocurrency, betting, bureaus de change, BDCs, to launder their crime proceeds. Now, that's according to the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, which also says that other channels include livestock, the use of cash in moving KFR, which is kidnappings for ransom, the use of bank accounts, and the use of formal, informal sectors. To the United Kingdom, let's take a look at the front page of The Eye. Now, Tony Blair essentially is not happy with Keir Starmer's net zero plan. The two clash on there. And then finally, The Sun does show the Prince and Princess of Wales. We have Prince William and, of course, the Princess of Wales, Catherine, celebrating their 14th wedding anniversary on the Scottish island of Mull. So huge congratulations to them.
Congratulations to them. Thank you so much, Adefemi, and welcome home. We hope you'll be home for a while.
See how it goes.
I hope you stay for the rest of the program.
Of the show. I won't be too far away, don't worry. I won't be too far away.